Hook mysterious and chilling. What if a letter arrived, with your name on it, written 100 years before you were even born? Amelia thought it was a coincidence, until the storm came, and someone knocked from inside the house. The wind howled outside the old cottage. Rain tapped against the window like restless fingers. Inside, Amelia sat by the flickering fireplace, holding an envelope yellowed with age. She had found it in the attic, buried beneath a stack of newspapers from 1924. The paper crackled softly as she unfolded it. Her name was written on it. But the ink was faded, the handwriting elegant and unfamiliar. Her pulse quickened. The letter began, to Miss Amelia Rose Turner, from the year 1924. A shiver ran through her spine. How could someone from the past know her name? The words seemed alive on the page. They spoke of a storm, a disappearance, and a warning. Each line felt colder than the one before. The writer claimed to be her great-grandfather, trapped in a time loop, writing letters that reached only those who shared his bloodline. She laughed nervously, thinking it must be a prank. But as lightning flashed outside, the room flickered strangely. The air thickened, and the smell of burning paper filled her nose. The fireplace hissed, though she had not added any wood. Her hands trembled as she read the next lines. They come when the thunder strikes 3 times. Do not answer the knock. Do not open the door. A loud crack split the sky. The first thunder. Her breath caught in her throat. The second followed almost instantly. The walls seemed to pulse with each rumble. Amelia's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might drown out the storm. Then came the third. A deep, hollow boom that shook the windows. The lights flickered, then went out completely. In the silence that followed, she heard it. A knock at the door. Slow, heavy, 3 times. Her body froze. The fire had gone out, leaving only shadows. The letter slipped from her hands and drifted to the floor. Another knock echoed through the small cottage. She whispered to herself, "It is only the wind." But deep down, she knew the wind did not knock. The sound came again, closer now. Not from the door. From behind her. Her breath hitched as she turned slowly. In the dim glow of the dying embers, she saw a figure standing by the attic stairs. A man, soaked in rain, holding a candle that did not flicker. His eyes were hollow, yet familiar. Amelia tried to speak, but her throat tightened. The man raised a trembling hand. In his palm, he held an envelope, identical to hers. Amelia stumbled backward, her shoulder striking the edge of the table. The candle in the stranger's hand illuminated only fragments of his face. Pale skin, drenched hair clinging to his temples, lips trembling as if frozen between words and silence. The storm outside grew wilder, thunder rolling like an approaching drumbeat. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Every instinct told her to run, yet her feet refused to move. The man stepped forward, each motion stiff and deliberate, as though unseen strings pulled him through the air. "I told you not to open it," he repeated, voice cracking with grief. The room seemed to shrink around them. Amelia's eyes darted toward the door, but the knob turned on its own, slowly, as if something on the other side waited impatiently. The man's candlelight wavered. "Listen carefully," he said. "This house stands where 2 times overlap. It breathes when the storm comes. You were not supposed to find that letter." Amelia shook her head, her lips quivering. "But it had my name," she said. "It was meant for me." He lowered his gaze, sadness shadowing his face. "It was meant for the last Amelia," he whispered. "The one who never left this night." The words sank into her like shards of glass. She wanted to deny them, to demand an explanation, but the wind outside screamed louder than her thoughts. The window burst open, scattering rain and ash across the floor. The letter that had fallen now fluttered back toward the fire, untouched by water, glowing faintly in the gloom. Amelia grabbed it and looked again at the writing. The ink had changed. Where once it said, "Do not open the door," new words had appeared below, written in the same delicate hand. "They are already inside." Her throat closed. She turned toward the man, but he was gone. Only the faint shimmer of candle wax remained on the wooden floorboards, trailing toward the attic steps. Something moved above. Slow, dragging footsteps. Wood creaked beneath the weight of something, or someone, that did not belong to this world. She clutched the letter to her chest and forced herself toward the staircase. "Grandfather," she whispered, though she had no reason to believe he was still there. The air grew colder as she climbed. Each step felt heavier, as if the air itself resisted her movement. The attic door was open. Inside, the storm's light illuminated a row of dusty trunks and a large mirror leaning against the far wall. The glass shimmered faintly, though no light touched it directly. Amelia approached, her reflection rippling like water. In the mirror, she saw not her face but a different version of the room, brighter, untouched by decay, as though time had turned backward. And standing there, within the reflection, was the man again. He looked younger now, dressed in clothes from another century. He lifted a letter in his hand, just as she held hers. When he spoke, the sound came not from the air but from inside her head. Every generation opens what should remain sealed. I wrote the first letter to stop it. I failed. You must end the cycle. Tears stung her eyes. How? She whispered. Her voice trembled like the candlelight that no longer existed. Burn it before the thunder ends, he said. If the storm passes and the letter remains, time resets. You will take my place. The next Amelia will find your words. Lightning flared, revealing something behind her in the real room. A shape, tall, faceless, its outline shifting like smoke, moved closer. It reached out, and the air hissed where its fingers brushed. Amelia spun toward the fireplace. The embers still glowed faintly. She threw the letter onto the ashes, praying it would ignite. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, blue flame burst upward, spreading like liquid glass. The figure screamed, a sound not made by lungs or throat but by the bending of the world itself. The walls shuddered, the mirror cracked, and 1,000 reflections fractured into shards of light. Amelia fell to her knees as heat surrounded her. She felt the ground tilt, as though the cottage floated between two moments in time. Every sound stretched, slowed, and folded inward. Through the roar of fire and storm, she heard his voice one last time. You did what I could not. The mirror's pieces rose into the air, glowing, swirling around her like dying stars. Then, silence. When she opened her eyes, the storm was gone. Morning light seeped through the windows. The cottage looked different. The air smelled new, clean, untouched by age or decay. Amelia stood slowly, her knees weak. The fireplace was empty, not a trace of ash or burnt paper remained. On the table lay a fresh envelope, crisp and white, with her name written in the same familiar hand. Her breath caught. She reached out, hesitated, then lifted the letter. The seal was unbroken, but the wax was warm, as if just pressed. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Inside was a single line written in dark ink. The storm always returns. Outside, far in the distance, thunder rolled once more. A single drop of rain struck the window. And then another. The light flickered. Somewhere deep within the house, something moved, soft, deliberate, waiting. The air thickened again, heavy with the same electric dread. Amelia stepped backward, clutching the new letter. Her eyes darted toward the mirror, now mended and whole again. Her reflection stared back, perfectly still. Then, without her moving, it smiled. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. The reflection's hand lifted slowly, pressing against the glass from the inside. The surface rippled like water, and her own hand began to rise against her will. No, she whispered, struggling to pull back, but the glass pulled harder. Her fingertips brushed the cold surface. A jolt of energy surged through her, freezing her breath. The reflection leaned closer, its smile stretching unnaturally wide. In its eyes, lightning flickered, not from outside, but from within. Her scream echoed through both worlds at once, shattering the fragile silence between time. When the storm ended, the cottage was empty again. On the floor, where she once stood, lay 2 letters, one old, one new, each bearing the same name. And in the mirror, a faint silhouette lingered. A woman, watching, waiting for the next thunder to call her back. The morning sun rose slowly over the horizon, painting the sky in soft strokes of gold and silver. The storm had finally passed. The old cottage stood quiet, its walls damp, its silence deep and strange. Amelia awoke on the wooden floor, the faint scent of rain still clinging to the air. Her head throbbed, and for a moment, she could not remember how she had fallen asleep there. The fire had long gone cold, but a beam of sunlight touched the mirror across the room. She stood, unsteady, brushing the dust from her hands. The mirror was no longer cracked, no longer rippling with shadows. It was simply a mirror, still, clear, and silent. Her reflection looked tired but alive. There was color in her cheeks, warmth in her breath. For the first time in hours, or perhaps years, Amelia felt present, grounded, and real. On the table lay the envelope. It was blank now. No name, no ink, no warning, only a piece of paper, empty and harmless. She stepped outside, into the bright, washed morning. The air smelled of wet grass and new beginnings. Birds sang cautiously from the trees, as if testing the peace after chaos. The world seemed untouched by the terror of the night. She turned to look at the cottage one last time. Its windows glimmered in the sun,